Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm going to give a few seconds for people to come in, and I want to be able to share this into my Facebook group, Mothers Raising Teen Daughters. But as I do, I want to be sure that I introduce myself. My name is Kiana Shaw, and I am the creator and CEO of Leadership Academy, as well as the founder of Mothers Raising Teen Daughters, which is a group here on Facebook. And I can tag that later in the comments. But I wanted to jump on and talk about our teen daughters' attitudes, or not just our teen daughters, but our teenagers, period, their attitudes, and the reason that we're dealing with those attitudes. And so I want you to all, if you can, just share this video. Hey, Miss Paula. Jennifer sent me a picture of you guys at the gym. I was like, oh, hey, I love it when Facebook comes to real life. And so I'm going to jump into this in 1 second. And the name, I believe I titled it, Why Your Teenager Needs an Attitude Adjustment. I'm putting this together because I want to make sure I share it into the group. So let's talk about some of the obvious things, the obvious reasons why our teenagers need attitude adjustments. So number one, let's talk about the obvious, the diet, right? When your diet is bad, your attitude is not the best. So a lot of us are allowing our teenagers to have hot Cheetos all the time, those Takis. Their attitude just, their attitude sucks because their diet sucks. So they're drinking, when I work at the high schools, I always see these kids walking in the morning with coffee, frappuccinos, and those things, their bodies don't need them. I mean, they're younger, they have more energy, they really don't need coffee, right? Even if they've been up all night. And the truth of the matter is, even if you have been up all night, whether you're a teenager or an adult, if you take the time to simply have a good balanced meal in the morning, you'll have more energy than you would if you actually were drinking coffee. So that makes sense, right? And then there's this entitlement factor. A lot of times what we have are children who are entitled to everything, and so their attitudes are bad. In my Facebook group, Mothers Raising Teen Daughters, one of the ladies posted, what are your teenage girls or your teenagers asking for in their Christmas list? And so parents were putting all these things. They want phones, they want tablets, they want new laptops, they want a car, they want, all these things that the kids were wanting. And what ended up happening was the lady tagged me and she said, Kiana, what is your thoughts on this? And I was like, you know what? Honestly, I think that we create an environment where they want all these electronics. They want these $1,000 gifts, right? I think we, growing up, a lot of times we had $100, $200 max, right? And if it was more kids in the house, you had a less of a limit. And so one of the things that I discussed with them is, taking the entitlement factor out of the Christmas holidays, right? Even though my daughter is 5, she has 4 humanitarian efforts that she has to do every year to earn her Christmas. We have to be willing to do that. We have to be willing to let our kids know that, yes, it's Christmas time and it's fun, but that's not your birthday. That's Jesus' birthday. So in my house, Kayla's birthday is the only given, right? For my nieces, their birthday is the only given. And so I have created an environment where I really wanted, because I didn't want my daughter to be raised with Christmas as we know it. I wanted her to, really see it as a time to give as opposed to receiving. But I'm co-parenting, and when you have 2 parents with different beliefs or different ways of going about their same belief, then you have to compromise. So the compromise was she does 4 humanitarian efforts a year. Well, a lot of us don't make our kids do anything. Like, we don't even make them do their community service hours for school. We find somebody to write it off. I cannot tell you guys how many requests I get every single year to help our kids write off or just sign off on their humanitarian, or not humanitarian, their required service hours, their volunteer hours for school and for college. And I just think to myself, Are you seriously asking me to do this? One, I have a nonprofit that's always in need of help. Two, I know so many people who need help all the time. Three, why are you teaching your kid that it's okay to skirt around what they should be doing? That doesn't work. And so the entitlement factor is a big part of why our kids are so, reluctant to try to earn anything, right? They are 16, 17, and you don't make them work. And I get it. Sometimes you don't make them work because they have a full schedule in school. But other times they spend 20 hours a week on the phone. They can spend 20 hours a week saying, "Hi, welcome to McDonald's. May I help you?" Because working teaches them how to, deal with different personality types. When you got somebody coming in, pissed off about barbecue sauce, and you like, it's really not that big of a deal, but it teaches them to smile anyway in the work environment. It teaches them that the customer is to be serviced first and quickly. It teaches them to walk with purpose because somebody is standing there, or you might have 30 somebody standing there waiting for their food. And so those are important parts to getting them to not feel entitled, is to make them work for some things. And another thing is, the final thing is, because you allow it. Because you allow your daughter, your son to have these attitudes, right? So we talk about their diet, we talk about their entitlement factor, but then there's the parent factor. We allow them to go in their room and slam the door. We allow them, I'll never forget getting upset with my mom, and we were living outside of LA, in East LA, and I stomped up the steps. I'm just stomping like I have purchased a step in that house. And she waited till I got to the top, and she said, "Come on back down here." So I'm upset, and I stomped down, and I stomped back up, and she said, "Come on back down here." And she said, "Now you're gonna go up these steps without stomping." So I go up the steps, and I get to the last one, and I stomp on that one. And she was just like, "Come on back down here." And so I go back down, and by this time I'm tired, right? Because like we on the, multi-level. So it's like, goodness, like how many times? So now I realize I'm hurting myself by stomping up and down these steps. So I end up going up the steps, and when I got to my room, I slammed the door. And my mother politely came up to my room, and she took the door off the hinges. She sat the door inside of my room, dared me to touch it. She put up a curtain rod and put a sheet on it. And I cannot tell you how hard it is to slam a sheet. It is almost impossible. It is impossible, right? And so what that told me at that time was, I can be mad. I just can't display it this way. Right? And now that was a very calm mom. And the calmer my mother would get, the more we would be on high alert. So that was just kind of one of the things that we learned growing up. But what I'm trying to tell you is, when we allow our children, our teenagers, to have these attitudes, when we allow them to display them, when we go up to the school and we act just as bad, when we allow them to call us, someone told me recently that one of the students said, "Mom," called the mom from the teacher's or the counselor's office and said, "Mom, she tripping. Will you come up here and beat her butt?" Why does he feel comfortable saying that? Never. Should a child feel comfortable telling their mom, "You know what, I just don't like the way she acting"? But that tells me how you're behaving, right? So we want to talk about not allowing it, and different ways that we can curb these attitudes. So one of the things that our teenagers need to understand, and we as adults need to understand, is that your attitude is like a big dog. Now, when you see someone crossing with a little dog, they're walking down the street and they have a little dog that's yip, 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 you almost be like, whatever, right? If the dog runs up to you, depending on who you are, you might just shoo him, or you might kick at him a little bit or something like that. But you're not really worried about this little dog. You like, you know what? If he get my ankle, it's going to hurt. But you're not really worried. But when someone is walking with a pit bull and they like, can barely hold on, that's a different thing. Because right at that point, you're going to cross the street. At that point, you're going to stop, stay in your car. When I was pregnant, I was held hostage by the same big old Marmaduke dog like 4 or 5 times because I'm like, he don't have control over that dog. Our attitudes are the same way. Our attitudes are the big dogs in the room. And people will not deal with you. People will avoid you. People will pass you over for opportunities because of your bad attitude. And your child, your teenager needs to understand that's not just something going on in this house. As your parent, when you have a bad attitude, a lot of times we'll just leave you. We'll leave you. We'll leave you home. We will leave you wherever. Just you can't come because we don't want to deal with it. But in the corporate world, in your business world, in your school programs, your counselor, even if you are the most qualified, will look at your bad attitude and say, you know what? I'm good. I don't want to deal. I can't trust you to go out there and represent us as a school. I can't trust you to go out there and represent us, as a city, because even though you are the best singer, even though you are the most talented, even though you are the most qualified, your attitude won't allow me to trust you. And corporate America will look at it the same way. Even if you are amazing, you can't be promoted because your attitude sucks. We can't give you people to be over because we don't know how you're going to work with them because your attitude is horrible. And we have to be able to teach our kids, you cannot be walking around the big dog with the bad attitude. You can't just be vicious. You have to tame that. And you can say, oh, they just keeping it 100. They just keeping it real, but they going to keep it real unemployed. They're going to miss some real opportunities because their attitude is horrible. And if you're allowing that in your home, you have to kind of step back and reassess some things. Now, another thing is that our teenagers and as adults, we got to understand that our attitudes are 10% of the actual event and 90% of how we respond to it, right? We have all heard that cliche. But it's not so much a cliche. We've all heard that saying. And it's because how you affirm yourself, how you present yourself makes a huge difference. How you think of situations makes a huge difference. So when you are in a situation where you've been fired, if you fall all out and hit the floor and, now you want to blow up the building. That's just too much going on. But if you look at it and go, oh, now I have an opportunity to work on some things that I really wanted to work on. Now I have an opportunity to be self-employed. Now I have an opportunity to change my resume and go into a new career field or whatever the case may be. But you are in control. How you respond to it is going to make all the difference. How you respond to it will take you to the next level or it will drop you down a level, right? Now, our attitudes are based on our beliefs, feelings, and habits. Right? Your belief is what you're thinking, you're feeling, whether it's good or bad. Your habit is what you do, right? So let's take, marijuana, right? Now, I believe, or let's say a person believes that marijuana is harmful. Their feeling is that it's disgusting, right? And then their habit is they ask you not to smoke around them. Or me with spiders. Spiders are deadly. And so that's my belief. My feeling is that they should die. They was not invited. They do not get to stay. And then my habit is to kill them. If I see it, it's gone. Like the end, right? And so when we have our beliefs, feelings, and habits, they control how we display everything we're feeling. And so if your belief is that it's always there to hurt you, it's always there to harm you, your attitude is going to reflect that. And so as parents, it is our responsibility to teach our kids how to handle that, how to look at situations and see the positive, how to look at situations and control that. We cannot just let them fly by the handle. We can't just say, well, they're just being expressive. There is a way to be expressive. And you have those kids who are always, always, always on the upside. You have those people who are always on the upswing of things, right? My brother told me once, he said, when things are going wrong, you need to think about the fact that everything is okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. And that taught me to breathe, reassess. What do I want the end to look like? Okay, let me start working toward that. That's an attitude change. That's a mind shift change. We have to be able to do that. We have to be able to teach our kids that. Our self-defeating attitudes, those are the things that hurt us, that hold us back. And our self-supporting attitudes, those are the things that make us feel better about ourselves, that motivate us to grow and to move. Those two things, self-defeating attitudes, self-supporting attitudes, those are the two things that will make or break you in life. They will make or break you, because you really need to understand how this works. Our teenagers need to understand how this works. Our young adults. I teach professional development, and this is just part of what I'm teaching all the time. How the attitude in your personal life will affect your professional life. And you're wondering why you keep getting passed up. It may not be about racism. It may just be your attitude. Everything ain't racism. Some things are simply, you suck as an individual. Your attitude is horrible. Some things are simply, you know what? We don't trust you, because you always got to have the last word. And where you're going, where we're trying to send you, you can't do that, because it's going to trickle back down to us. Nope. We're not sending you. Right? And so we need to be conscious of those things. And when I'm teaching young adults, when I'm teaching, on my online classes or in-person classes, I always have to stress that, and I make them do multiple exercises regarding that, because it is so important. It is so important. We have to stop allowing our young adults to have these attitudes and storm off to their rooms. You storming off to a room in my house? That doesn't work. I get it. You need your space, but you can't do it like that. And my 5-year-old, when she stormed off a couple of months ago, I was just like, okay, so let's be clear. You get to have your feelings, but don't you ever leave like that again. And that was the end. And I was very serious. I didn't yell, but she understood. And she has not tried it again, because I was very clear with her on the expectations. Some of us do not set expectations for our kids. And so because we have no expectations about how they're supposed to behave, how they're supposed to act, they just do what they want to do. And we don't fight that. We just let them. And that doesn't work. It does not help them when they're applying for college. It does not help them deal with a teacher when mommy and daddy can't fly 3,000 miles to assist them. We are not setting them up for success, and we need to start doing that. And so when they're having attitudes, letting them understand that when attitudes collide, they are contagious, right? So we all know that person that walks in. Kim Porter passed recently, and people were like, oh my goodness, she would walk in and everything would change. The room would just light up, and that is a positive attitude. Positive attitudes do that. But you know what else happens? Negative attitudes bring depression. They bring anger. And we can be listening to music and we be like, why am I irritated all of a sudden? Right? Because it's the attitude that comes with all of that. It's the attitude that comes with the person, right? Protecting your energy, protecting your vibe, protecting your spirit, whatever you want to call it, is mandatory. It is an absolute necessity. And we cannot change that just because these little kids belong to us. I'm still going to protect my spirit. And I've told my daughter, my daddy reminded me of this recently, that he was telling someone else about it. Because you can pout. I don't have a problem with that. Just not in here. You can say, hey, I'm upset and I want to go to my room. That's fine. That's completely acceptable. But you don't get to change the atmosphere unless it's positive around here. And I'm serious about that. And I hold her to that. It's okay if you want to leave and you want to go that's fine. But in here, you're going to have a positive attitude. And I'm not taking away your right to be upset. What I'm saying is that you don't have a right to upset everybody else. We're happy in here. If you're going to be unhappy, you can do that in your own space. The end. And we have to be willing to have that conversation with our kids. We also have to be willing to ask for specifics. Why are you upset? A lot of us grew up in households where adults didn't validate how kids were feeling. Adults didn't care. Adults, didn't make a big deal out of it. But I'm a firm believer, particularly with teenagers or with kids, period, because they are people. Right? They're people just like we are. And so reminding myself, speak to her the way I want my mother to speak to me, or the way I want my father to speak to me, or the way I want my boss to speak to me. Don't just discard my feelings just because they're not yours. Allow me an opportunity to say how I'm feeling. And that helps. Tell me why you're upset. Okay. And how did you feel about that? How did you feel about what I said versus what I did? How did you, okay, but do you think your reaction was appropriate? Do you think that you had a reaction, or do you think that you had a moment where you could do something different? Like, how is it positive or negative? These are things that you have to be able to ask them. Do you think this made the situation better, or do you think it made it worse? That is important. We have to be able to ask those questions, and we have to allow them to be able to share their feeling, their experience. And it can't always be, think of it as, with your significant other, they do something, you get upset about it. You don't want them to say, oh, we'll deal with it. That mess around, get you cut in some households. And so our kids should not be experiencing that. I get it. They don't, contribute financially to the hospital. To the home in most cases. But that doesn't mean that they don't have an opinion. So you telling me a stay-at-home mom, a domestic engineer, can't have a conversation with her husband about what she feels because she doesn't contribute financially? And we would say no to that. We would say, no, she gets to say how she feels. Okay, well, our kids should have the same right. And so when we take the time to hear them out, when we take the time to listen to their gripes, and my thing is, you can say it, just say it respectfully. Watch your tone. Right? Don't walk away with a tone. Don't blink in that tone. Like, let's be clear. How you present it makes a huge difference. Right? Let's see. What was the other thing I wanted to say? Both of you guys can't act 16, right? Because we're talking about teenagers. Both of you can't be 16. Both of you can't be 14. If you are the adult, you have to approach it in an adult way. You can't just fly off the handle. And if that's how you do respond, then maybe you need to sign up for my course too. Because how you respond to it is going to make a huge difference. And it's not that, as a parent, you don't have a right to check your kid. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, talk to them in the same way you would want them to approach you, or you would want someone who is your peer to approach you, someone who is your boss to approach you, because it's the same dynamic, right? I sign your paychecks. I buy the food. I give you the money for the food that goes in your house. So when I approach you, I should still do it respectfully. The same thing for the person you're providing for. You still need to do it respectfully. I think that was it. And another thing that I think that we have to remember is that as long as we're thinking, we may as well think positive. And so we need to assume the positive. We need to teach our kids everything is not an attack against you. Sometimes people are just going through stuff, right? I was walking a couple of weeks ago, and this guy is like, oh my God, why are you frowning? Why sister's always frowning? And I was like, dude, the sun is in my eyes. You walking toward me. You're walking away from the sun. The sun is literally in my eyes. I wasn't frowning at you. It wasn't about you. I don't know you. So why would you assume that I'm upset with you? Why would you assume that I'm upset? I'm not frowning. I'm squinting. So assume the positive. Teaching them to assume the positive is going to be a major deal. So thank you all for listening, for tuning in. My name is Coach Kiana Shaw. I am the CEO of Lead Hership Academy. And if you will take a moment, if you are a woman who is a guardian or a parent or an auntie of a teenage girl, join my group, Mothers Raising Teen Daughters. If you're a man, please do not try to join the group, because I will not let you in and I will block you. All right. All right. I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.